Hi, this is Dr. MJ coming to you from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. This is the Women in Dentistry podcast, where we feature women in dentistry making waves and leading the industry through the next decade. I am your host, Dr. Mary Jane Hanlon, a former dental assistant, dental hygienist, and now dentist. I am very pleased to introduce you today to Ms. Hannah Coffey. Hannah's speaking and consulting programs focus on implementation of systems and strategies with proven benefits for our patients' whole body health, interdisciplinary synergy within the medical and dental communities, and practice growth with economy of scale and sustainability. Hannah is a national speaker with over a decade of experience on the dental speaking circuit. She's a frequent guest expert on industry podcasts and has been featured in publications. She's a member of the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health, National Network of Healthcare Hygienists, American Dental Hygiene Association, Dental Speakers Bureau, and the Dental Speaker Institute. While still in high school, Hannah began her career in dentistry. She worked as an expanded function certified dental assistant for over 15 years. During this time, she had the opportunity to work with all dental specialties, which increased both her knowledge and desire to learn more. With an ever-growing passion for healthcare, Hannah earned her RDH. After practicing clinical dental hygiene for over 2 decades, she expanded into administrative executive roles in teaching. The role of clinical dental hygiene instructor ignited her passion for inspiring, influencing, and sharing her knowledge with future healthcare professionals. It is now my pleasure to bring you to my interview with Ms. Hannah Coffey. I am so excited to have you, Hannah. You know, the last couple of times we've seen each other on our individual videos, being at the same location, learning the same content, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk to her. So without any further ado, I'd love for you to share with the audience, you know, how you get into dentistry, what it is that you're doing today, and then we'll go into some questions later on. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to our channel. And also don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss out on a single episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, MJ. And it's truly an honor to be here. I love the journey that, although we went through a pandemic, so many of us had an opportunity, a silver lining, if you will, to all of our virtual experiences, and really had a great opportunity to meet some people. You know, my journey began, there's so many of us out there that we can say it's in the blood, right? So my father and grandfather were both dentists, and so it was in the blood. It's what you grew up with. But I have a brother who didn't become a dentist, right? He became a chef. But all the girls seemed to follow into the dental field. Mine became, it was very organic. It was an early love of teaching and watching my father. And this is, you know, it's very, very interesting, you know, when dad's a dentist, but then the older I got, the more I saw. And I had a childhood friend who had an accident. She broke 8 and 9 while we were playing. I was playing with her. And small town, you know, outside of Boston. So dad's office was close by. We ran over to the office, ran in the back door, screaming for dad. And, you know, he says, oh my gosh, that's one of my kids, and came out. And what I thought was just a tragic end of life experience that I felt responsible for. And by the end of the day, you know, her teeth were restored. Her smile was back. It was so enlightening to say, that's what you do? That's what going to the dentist can restore, not just a little girl's spirit being my own, a little girl's smile being my dear friend's, but it just lit something at a very early age.
How old were you?
I couldn't have been more than 10. You know, we were young. And from that moment on, it was every school project. It was every science fair. It was every oral presentation. It was, you know, 8th grade science. Shout out to Mr. Molyneux, right? But I had to do an oral presentation. So I had the posters, I had the instruments. I knew what every instrument did. I had alginate, I had trays. We took impressions. But the thing about it was the comfort zone. It was like a fish to water. I thought, this is just really cool. And it wasn't like, oh my gosh, oral presentation. I'm like, oh, this is dentistry. And it was such a natural fit for me, and I kept going. I worked at my dad's practice like so many of us did. And he got to the point, he said, let's see if dentistry really is your fit. And I don't want you to work for me anymore. I'm like, ooh, what do you mean?
You mean I got to go work for somebody else?
Somebody else? But it was a great experience. And of course, where dentistry is a small community, no matter how big the community gets, right? But it was an amazing experience to go work for colleagues that were endodontists or oral surgeons, orthodontists, and really get that feel for it going, oh, you know what, this really is it. Before I even had a formal education. So that was really the start. And then I had the pleasure of being, Boston's such a great city. And, I did my training at Mount Ida, and we did all of our clinicals in at Tufts. And it was great to work with the students. It was helping the students to learn how to do four-handed dentistry, right, back in the day, which was always great, because I'd hand them an instrument and be like, and they'd look at me and I said, that's what you want to use now. And they're like, right. I had so much experience with my dad, and we're still carving amalgams and doing things like that. So, I really was able to take that certified dental assisting to the oomph degree. I did it for 15 years in the whole Boston metropolitan area and did everything and just loved it. And then I hit that point of, you know what, I need a break.
Yeah.
I just needed a break. Dental burnout, whatever you want to call it. We started off, way back, they were in Sears, and it was the very early days of the DSO, Dedicated Dental Services.
Yeah.
Sears and Roebuck. And we had two master offices, one in Boston and one in Brookline. And that was my first exposure to multi-practice, multi-professional specialties within the group, big, 15, 20 op clinics. And again, loved it. When I think back, yes, needed that time out, and I did. So I did the time out. I gave it all up. I moved up to New Hampshire and became a bartender and started skiing every day.
Did you?
Yes.
Was that a midlife crisis, or you were too young for that?
Very too young for the midlife crisis, but it was a great break. And then, you can only have so much fun, but you get to a point and it's like, okay, what are you really going to do for the rest of your life? And it's like, okay, I think it's time to go back to school. And I went back for my hygiene degree.
And where'd you go?
And I went to Cape Cod Community College. Yep, loved it down there. Such a great community. And now Mary Ann Dryer's down there. And, I've seen so many come and go and have great friends that I graduated with that teach there. And as I say, no matter how big the community gets, it's still a very small community.
It is. It's amazing.
And that was just a fantastic opportunity to be there. And also I was able to teach there for a year. And that was a great experience. So I was still able to bring in my love of dentistry, my passion for teaching. And again, I had that early bug with the DSOs, and I got in with the DSOs in my hygiene career, which really gave me an opportunity. And we can go back and forth on pros and cons. We really can. And I understand all that. But what it did for me was gave me 14 years of going from a clinical hygienist to excelling at clinical hygiene to becoming a coach to help others excel at clinical hygiene, to coaching more to work with teams, to dealing with the CEO saying, how can I help you do this more? I said, make it a full-time position for me and then give me a team. And this was really the ground floor of building a management system underneath the hygiene department.
Wow, that's awesome.
It went from 1 day a week coaching to a full-time. I ended up being a divisional director of hygiene and had over 150 offices, traveled all over the country every single week. But I was able to work with my team. I had hygiene managers under me that would work within their territories. And it was just great to have a succinct message of proven success with a focus on patient care that worked.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a great story. Now, right now, you're doing more of integrated medicine, correct?
I am. I'm really doing the integrated healthcare because I've always believed, and I can tell you stories about that too, but the body is connected and there's so much that we miss.
You think?
I know I talk a lot about my dad, but he used to wear a button that said, "I am a real doctor."
Yeah.
You know, and it's really time for us to break through and continue to scream from the mountaintops that the oral systemics are real and we can save lives by implementing them.
Well, let's go down this path for a little while because, obviously, that I'm really passionate about that. And I have been talking about it nonstop, much to the dismay of some people, I'm sure. But the one thing that COVID has had as a silver lining is the fact that two things of critical importance have happened. Number one, we have now been established as essential healthcare workers. No more can medicine ever say that we're not part of the essential team. Unfortunately, what's not being educated yet is the fact that people in the general population, our patients and non-patients, need to understand that even though medicine thinks we're over here and not part of medicine, we actually are a part of medicine. And we actually do see you on a more regular basis than any primary care physician does, and that we can support the primary care physicians in their journey to patient overall health. If you just would open your mind a little bit, this silo that has occurred, and I don't know if you know the story or not, was 250 plus years ago when a dean of a medical school single-handedly determined.
I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you from this book. I knew I loved you. Okay, go ahead.
Oh my gosh, because it's mechanical. No, it's not. It's still part of the body. Go ahead. What does it say?
This is, all right. So this book, this is the American System of Dentistry, which was published in 1886.
Wow.
Now, we have a very early dentist who was also an MD, Dr. G.V. Black.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? So he's in this book. And I quote this all the time, and I have to be very careful. I have a love for old books and it's falling apart. But it goes no further than health is a standard condition of the body in which all of its functions are regularly and normally performed. Any deviation from this is disease.
Period, end of conversation.
It's like, mic drop, I'm done now, right? And then I want to back that up, to what about that Hippocratic oath? What about the oaths that we took? It's trying to get into, when you talk about why are you going into dentistry? What is dentistry to you? And these things can take a lot of time to really unpack because it can get very deep. But when I coach with teams, I ask them, from the beginning, and particularly the doctors, right? What's your vision? And what's the balance between your personal vision and your professional vision?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't know how you're showing up, why you're doing this, we know what you do, we know how you do it, not to get all Simon Sinek on you, but why do you do it?
Exactly. It always starts with why. There's a book called that. I can't remember who wrote it, but there's a book it always starts with why.
So if you get to that point working with a team, and does your team know what your vision is? Do you know what your team's vision is? We've got to start, master the basics, right? But for me, we've got to get to that before we can even go any further. I'm not trying to, I won't even say it.
Go ahead.
I will. All right, I will. Go ahead. What? But if I'm working with a hygienist and I'll say, why'd you go into hygiene? Why did you go into dentistry? And she tells me because for an associate degree, I can make a whole bunch of money.
Wrong reason.
I say, you know what? we're not going to work well together. And because I come from someplace so different, you know, when I coach teams, I know the end game is the business. I get that. You know, but I can tell you that you can get to that financial success and solvency without it being your focus.
That's right. That's right.
I stake it all on that. It's because that'll come. It will.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that one of my quotes or sayings that I say to the students all the time is, you know, the fingers you have in that mouth that you're working on belong to a human being. It is not about you checking off one more procedure that you have just finished. Your responsibility is to that human being that is laying in your chair. They deserve your best, and you got to give them your best.
Regardless of what that production is going to be for that 60-minute time period. If it ends up being this, I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Now, if I have a doctor out there going, well, I'm not okay with that, then I'll say, you know what, then we're not going to work well together. Because I can put it into, if you look at what a toddler ate in a day, you'd probably be horrified, right? But if you look at what a toddler ate during the month, the toddler is perfectly healthy, thriving and growing. Now, I mean, no disrespect to those that aren't, but I think you can see the analogy. Are we in a position where we're truly reviewing that medical history and then doing our entire assessment and then putting on the brakes going, wait a minute, wait just a minute. We've got things going on here. You've got a cardiac condition, a host of medications, and periodontal disease or any disease of the mouth, any disease, don't get me going, right? That we need to stop and think about what we're going to do next. And what I really advocate for in my 5 to Thrive is one of the things that we do next is begin a communication with their primary care physician or their oncologist or their endocrinologist or whoever it is we need to be talking to open up that dialogue to co-treat for whole body health. Now I'm going to take a step back and take a breath because that to me, it's like poking the bear. So I just want to be, before I start yelling at everybody out there on your podcast, but that's where that passion comes from. It's not, I'm not going to slam out that prophylaxis because I've got to get some production on the books. I'm going to stop and talk to my patient and create a sense of urgency around what truly needs to happen and begin that network. And this will ultimately grow my practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, it's not foreign. And we'll meet resistance all along the way. We always have, right? And we've got to just keep pushing through. We've got to keep shattering glass ceilings.
Well, it's not even the male female thing. It's the lack of education around what we are seeing in the mouth and how it relates to the body. You know, the Scottsdale report that Casey Hine worked on was outstanding because finally an independent group of physicians and dentists could look at the information and say, oh my God, it is correlated. Look at this and look at this and look at this. Thank goodness, finally. You know, there's a reason why we should be doing salivary testing. There's a reason why we should have a phlebotomist in our office trying to support our patients that are not in the best of health. Now, granted, there are a lot of patients in our chair that we are the only profession that has really pretty much put ourselves out of business, right? Because we have been really behind fluoride in the water for maybe 50, 60 years. Because we saw that anybody with the right amount of fluoride, yeah, too much is not good, too little is not good, but with the right amount of fluoride in the water, those teeth stay healthy. They are resistant to decay. Decay is a disease. It shouldn't be acceptable that your mouth has decay in it. It is a disease, just like everything else. what's the precipitating factor? And the precipitating factor for, cuspal disease is very different from root caries, right?
Oh, yes.
Totally different bacteria, totally different system. So, how we look at things from an overall health perspective is very different than our medical colleagues. And I truly believe, and I know we're aligned on this, I truly believe we have to start waking up, and a call to action has to be that we've got to start educating our colleagues, our medical colleagues, on how we can support them. But they need to see how we can support them. I do not believe that another mid-level provider is going to help us. We need a hygienist that is going to collaborate with us and help have a higher level of education that will support the movement into this kind of profession.
Amen. And the evidence is there, the research is there. Another hero of mine, historic, is Dr. Bradley Bale.
Yeah, Bale Doneen.
And when we talk about, how they practice, how Bale and Doneen practice in their whole preceptorship program, these are cardiologists, right? And when I had a client way back, he said, I did what you said. I sent my patient to the cardiologist. I said, good, because the research is there. Level A research. So there's no reason that you shouldn't be following through with that. And the cardiologist said, what's your dentist doing sending you to me? Again, we're going to hit barriers, and we need to be able to give them a call, offer to have lunch. Can we get together? Does your community know what you're doing out there? Are you breaking through as a true physician of the mouth, as a true whole body health dentist? And the only way that we can do that is through the communication. And there's so many different things that I'll talk to teams about doing. Have an open house. Maybe once the, 6 foot and all that stuff is over, but have it up, invite them in, send out a letter. Let's get to know each other, meet and greet, have some hors d'oeuvres, serve some wine, get to know who's in your community so that we can start to co-treat and break through these barriers that we keep running up against, and get your team in line and be okay with, we're stopping. We're not doing anything today. We need to get the letter going. We need to get the patient compliant, that we communicate with their primary care or whichever medical colleague that we're going to be reaching out to, and start this new approach, because the future of healthcare depends on it. And the future of healthcare is now.
I agree. I actually had a great conversation today with Dr. Vilas from teledentistry.com, and what they're doing in mitigating ER visits in hospitals to date has saved over $8 million in healthcare costs. Something as simple as just communicating with a patient about a concern they have and keeping them out of the emergency room. How amazing is that? And it's not physicians doing that, it's dentists doing that. We can support them. We can help them. We can be vaccinators and support you during times like this. Heck, we all gave up our PPE so that you guys could stay safe.
The first thing we did was, here, take the PPE. Oh my gosh, you're in trouble. We're in trouble.
Yeah. And not only that, but we understand infection control enough to realize, okay, this is serious. We need to stop right now, take a step back, support our medical colleagues, because the emergency rooms are not going to ever stop. And we're going to help everyone in general. So, yeah, the time has come. I certainly, obviously we could sit here and talk about this for 5 hours, but your journey has been fascinating. First of all, let me step back and say, so the DSO piece was way ahead of its time.
Yes.
And so did you ever consider continuing on in the DSO space and growing with some of these startups?
I wouldn't rule it out. Right now, it's continuing the message. Where's the next piece of my journey? Where do I fit? I love consulting. I love working with teams. be it 100 teams or 5 teams, right? When we initiate and implement, the 5 to Thrive, which is my program, it's amazing the changes that we can see. It's not overnight. Change isn't easy. And I didn't get to where I am overnight, but I did trust the journey, and I had to allow myself the time and space to not need to be perfect, right? And so many of us in dentistry need to be perfect. And it was a dear mentor of mine that said, that need for perfection can be the road to destruction. I was like, wow. She's like, just think about that for a little bit. And it really helped me redefine what I'm bringing out. And I know I get very serious at times. I think all my facial expressions change. My family says, when you go down to the beach and you grab your selfie stick and you go do your weather girl, from there in Destin, Florida, you're hysterical, you're fun, you're not rehearsed. Why isn't she on the stage? And I'm like, she can't be on the stage. Dentistry, serious stuff. And then I would take these courses and listen to other mentors, and they're like, you need to lighten up. You need to come as the weather girl. The message is still heavy, but when you lighten that up so that you're approachable, people are more apt to listen to you. So, sometimes I'll grab my books and I'm flashing books and I'm talking about oaths, and don't get me going on fraud. Because it is important, and it is serious, yet it's finding that tribe, if you will. And I've said this earlier, I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me. And when I meet with a team, it's not always going to be the right fit. And there are so many people out here doing the good, doing the coaching and the consulting. I may not be the one for you. I have systems, I have guidelines, I have me, right? And if we don't fit, that's okay. Let's find just somebody that does fit so you can continue that journey forward. Because again, really big community, really small community, right? Because especially now we look at this virtual world, right? Or don't get me going on Clubhouse. I was talking to a dentist the other night who was in Australia. I'm like, wow, this is crazy, and so our world gets so much smaller the more virtual we get. And it is a virtual world now.
Yeah, it really is. I know that, and you probably already know this already, but I actually feel bad for speakers that haven't been able to pivot yet, because I don't think live events like they used to be are going to be happening as big as because they're expensive to run, right? And so why wouldn't you showcase in a smaller location, but worldwide? Open the doors to the world and allow the world in. So you have an amazing long-term journey in dentistry. So, and when I hear you talking, what I hear is an extremely confident woman who knows her stuff and isn't afraid to share it with anyone. Has it always been like that for you?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, where did your confidence come from? Is it something, reflecting back as a little girl, did you always have confidence as a little girl, or was that something that you developed over time?
I definitely developed it over time. I always loved to teach. Even as a little, I would play school for hours. So the teaching thing has always been there. But the confidence, I don't think, came until I really got into hygiene. And I shouldn't say that, because my years as a certified dental assistant in Boston were extremely rewarding because I had it. I worked for a dentist years back, and he said to me, not everybody has it in the hands. And he said, you've got it in the hands. And and I didn't know what he meant. And he said, you know what? Not anyone can get a degree, but anyone can go into dentistry. We're back to the vision, right? Have you got it in the hands? Have you got it in the heart? Right? because it takes more than the brain. Oh, I'm getting profound on myself because this is really organic for me. But that's where it needs to come from, right? So as I kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper into my career, I must say that the confidence built because I began to become a leader.
And others saw that in you and put you in those positions.
Yes. And it really propelled me because, again, it became a natural fit, not without a lot of learning, right? A lot of mistakes, right? Learning how to really lead is not being the boss. Learning how to really lead is to inspire and influence others to do what you know works. And that's, there was a meme way back when, and it was a little girl shaking a stick at a little boy saying, I got leadership skills. I'm telling you, leadership skills, but it's like, it's not like that. It's not, the generation of growing up going, do so because I said so. Right. Which was, my mother's favorite, why do I have to do that? Because I said so. End of story. But it's not like that. So the big part of the journey for me, I'm not going to say that dentistry just came naturally, but it did. As I said earlier, I was a fish in water. The biggest part was learning how to be a good leader, and learning how to put my skills so that I could influence others and inspire others to do what I knew to be a proven way, not the only way, but a way that definitely works because I've had the successes to prove that. And always, always, always patient first.
So true. So true. What piece of what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten and from whom?
I don't know where it came from, or perhaps I do. Perhaps it just came from the universe. And it came during a dark time. Don't we get some great messages during our dark times? And it was trust the journey. It's like, trust the journey, for goodness sakes, and you can list on and on and on the bad things that have happened. And, I'll give a sister of mine credit also, my oldest sister. She just retired last year. And she said, I really have to retire because she's a dental hygienist, Forsyth grad, way back, shout out to Forsyth. And
what year?
She just turned 70. So.
Okay. So she might've been a little ahead of me. Yeah.
But she said, I definitely have to retire because I'm not renewing. No one her office can't call and say, gee, can you just come in on Friday? But years ago, she sent me a book and I didn't read the book and I didn't understand the little piece of jewelry. I kind of put it aside, and shame on me because she later called me and she said, did you like the book? And I said, oh, I did. That was so kind of you to send me that. And she said, well, right? So this is just like true confessions. And she said, well, wasn't the Kaleidoscope so cute? And I'm like, oh, is that what that was? That was a kaleidoscope. And she said, well, it's just so symbolic of the story. And I'm like, of course it is. So after I got off the phone with her, I went and I grabbed the book and I read the book. And the book was so profound on, if you look at your individual things that happen during life, so many of them are harsh, broken pieces of glass, and we've all been through them, right? And they hurt, and they're dark times, and sometimes they're wave after wave, and they just keep coming. And I stop and I look in the mirror now, and I say, what would you change? And I can't change anything, not even those real deep hurts. I can't change them because when I spin that glass, don't get me going here, MJ. But when I spin that glass in my kaleidoscope, it's beautiful.
That is probably one of the most incredible, inspiring, synergistic explanations. That was beautiful, unbelievable. How amazing of your sister to understand that that's what you needed at that moment in time. And we are a product of all of our experiences, good, bad, the ugly, every one of them. We all have them. We all have obstacles that we overcome, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is beautiful. Now, I have never heard that expression before, broken glass, kaleidoscope, we're all made up of broken. That's beautiful. Really amazing.
I think if you had asked me that prior to that book and that story, I could have picked a number of things. I wish I hadn't lost my mother at 16. I wish, I would have taken out some of those sharp pieces that hurt and cut. And you just can't. You just have to, it wouldn't, I mean, before I take the stage, when I do my national speaking, and this is just a true reflection to my mother. I know I speak of my father so much because he was the dentist and was with me so long. But I literally, and every speaker I know, I mean, before you go on, I don't care who you are, how long you've been speaking, you still got a little bit, until you get out there and you flip the switch. And I just always do this self-talk, really talking to my mother of, light me up, give me that energy. And it's that pep talk. It's that, by the time I get out there, I've got lightning coming out of my fingertips and I can just truly feel that. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that, relationship that I can have with her and the memory that I have of her. And so grateful for the relationship with my father, the true oral physician and the man who read Merck's manual in the den as a hobby, right? Got excited when the new PDR came out. And I'm like, what are you doing? So, and those are all part of what makes,
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be one thing that people would be surprised to know about you?
Gosh, I just gave you everything, didn't I?
But surprise, like what do you think would surprise somebody?
Well, I gave you my little weather girl thing. And I do get this question at different times, but before I left Massachusetts, I did own and operate Homestead Kennel, and I bred Labrador retrievers. In fact, I owned 17 yellow Labrador retrievers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I had converted my father's office into my business area. The operatories became whelping rooms where the puppies were held. In fact, my vet used to come to me. I was AKC certified, so I had quite an operation going. And then it was, time to decide, because it's anything in animal husbandry. It's 24/7, right? And it got to the point of, is it dog breeding or dentistry? And that was a tough decision.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah. But I needed to, I was a young single mom, and I said, I need to go with tried and true.
I bet that was hard to give up.
It was.
Yeah. I think that we just love our pets, and anybody that's had a dog, it's just, it's an amazing experience, that bond you have. I will never forget my dad bringing home a Saint Bernard. 6 kids and a Saint Bernard. Can you imagine?
We had a Great Dane. Can you imagine having all those kids and a great big dog like that? That's crazy.
It is nuts. It is nuts. So, how about obstacles? I shared that word with you before. Have there been any major obstacles that you want to share, and overcoming them, that you want to share with the audience? You can stick to dentistry if you want, but obviously we all have personal obstacles here and there, but you can stick to dentistry.
When I think about it, I didn't let them get in my way, because I truly loved what I do and always have. So it was, is this an obstacle, or is this just something to learn? Now, I look at it now as, okay, that was something to learn. When you're in the midst of it, you probably don't realize that, I think now I'm sounding like a mother, right? Or a new grandmother, that there are lessons in here. And I can look back on that and say, yes, there are lessons. What do we do with those obstacles? Boy, just don't give up. right? And that's not always easy. And, there can be, crazy times or down times. One thing I did learn, and dentistry can be extremely stressful, as any of us in it can understand. And I learned a very valuable lesson from my daughter, because I had gotten home from work and immediately started in with, are the dogs fed? Are the kitchen's not clean? And started just bap, 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 right? And one day she said to me, she's like, my day was okay. How about you, Mom? I was like, ooh, I need to come home differently, right? So I made an agreement with my office manager, and every day after work, before we got in our cars, we blew it off. We blew off that steam. What about this? What about that? So that the stress of that day didn't come home with us. And I didn't bring the dentistry home. I went home to be Mom, right? So I think that was a really valuable lesson. So I guess I'm finding the answer to your question through this story is, the obstacle of dealing with a stressful profession is finding an outlet for it. Now, mine was, blowing steam with my office manager, who's still to this day a dear, dear friend of mine. And this was back in the early 2000s. So, but finding that, do you want to go for a run? Do you want to go to the gym? Do you need to meditate? Do you need to listen to Calm or do a brain tap? Or what is it that you need so that you can find that balance so the stress of a day doesn't interfere with your family?
It's very valuable advice, something that I struggle with to this day, and that is extremely a well-intentioned piece of information for me personally, because I do at times forget that, I come in sometimes and I've got all this stuff going on and I got all this stuff on my mind, and I call it my diarrhea of the mouth.
Yes.
Like, get it out, right? And let's just hurry up and dump it on the people that we love. And you're absolutely right. We got to stop. And one of the things I shared with a guest earlier was that in my office, now I remembered somebody telling me this, or I read it in a book somewhere, but I would tell my team, look, we all have stuff. When we come into this office, see that bush over there? You leave it right there. And if you're still interested in taking that stuff home with you, you go ahead and grab it on the way home. But I guarantee you, if you just leave it there, it might just resolve itself by the time you go home. But I cannot have you bringing it in here. And I remembered that in a podcast recently when I was sharing that story with somebody else, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, you have forgotten to do that recently. And you're going home with diarrhea at the mouth. And now this is the second time it's come up. So obviously, that's a message from me, from the universe saying, you got to pay attention, girl, because you can't go home with all your baggage and dump it on the people that you love the most. And isn't that what we do? And as moms, I think that extra stress of knowing we've got that other job to go to that we're so passionate about, just as passionate as we are about our dentistry, that we forget. And, it is okay, but you've got to recognize it when you do it. And like you said, you got to just pull back and say, okay, what do I need to do to be present for everybody that I love by the time I get home? In fact, I'll share this story with you, that the office that she was describing used to just sit down if they were having a really tough day and spend 20 minutes having a glass of wine before they walked out the door. Because, okay, let's sit down, let's have a calm conversation about what happened today. You have a glass of wine. By the time we leave here, everybody's going to feel better because they'll get it off their chest and walk out the door. And I guess, we just have to develop those mechanisms in order to trust the process will work for everybody, and everybody will be much happier.
And there's so much truth to that. And yes, there were definitely times when it was a glass of wine, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be, I would get home and I would swing my arms, right? And I'd say, if I'm hitting you, you're too close right now. And it's okay to say, I need 5 minutes. Because when you're mom or dad, but when you get home, or both sometimes, but when you get home and, the family is on you, you might need 5 minutes. Or maybe you sit in the car, and you take 5 minutes, or you take a longer route home, or you blow off steam with a friend, or you have the glass of wine. But like you said, you find that mechanism, or even just the open honesty, with your family going, can I have 5 minutes? I'm going to get dinner going. I want to hear all about your day. I just need 5 minutes.
To myself. Yeah.
To myself, so that I don't come home with diarrhea of the mouth and change the home energy to bring that stress of the day home, or I'd complain. I said, there's stuff all over the kitchen counter and this and that, and the kitchen's not picked up. How can I make dinner when the kitchen's not picked up? And God bless my daughter, Sarah, she'd say, it was picked up. Your lunchbox is now thrown in the sink. You took all the Tupperware out of the lunchbox, and that's all over the counter. Your pocketbook's on the kitchen table, and this is over there. Everything was fine. If you look around, Mom, and she wouldn't say this, she wouldn't dare, but it's all your crap.
Oh my God, I love your daughter already, and I've never met her. She's a hot ticket.
She is, but I would just be like, okay, so I brought all this negative energy and I brought the mess.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's all me. So sometimes, when we reflect, it's like, all right, how can I do that differently? I can come home differently. I can come home and be mom. It doesn't happen overnight. We all struggle. We're not all perfect.
That's right. So tell me, do you have a personal motto or a mantra that you live by every day?
I know I mentioned it earlier. I do live by trust the journey.
Okay.
Even through, and it was really helpful for me through the pandemic, because I do believe I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And sometimes, even in those dark times, listen, talking to a Bostonian, even those dark times, it's coming out in me. I have to trust that. I had to trust what I went through, for the last 10 months. It wasn't always the creative juices flowing. If you had told me in February of 2020, I'm going to give you 9 months off to build your business, I would have been like, let's go. That's exactly what I need. This wouldn't go there. It couldn't go there. And I tried, and I've talked to so many mentors, coaches, colleagues. They're like, oh yeah, no, couldn't go there. Some could, and I admire them, but so many of us couldn't. And allowing ourselves to be there is okay.
Yeah, and it was a blessing to a lot of people to have that time. Absolutely, time with their family, time to recharge. And I mean, this was like Mother Nature's giving everybody a time out. We worked the entire time, but and that was fairly stressful because everything had to be changed. But the bottom line is, around me, everywhere, was just kind of like this time warp, which I think was awesome. I think that so many people have come out of this well on the other side.
What I've enjoyed, and I'll share about my journey through this, is that it's allowed me to, I don't want to be cliche-ish and say soul search, but just to really dive a little bit deeper and learn to be my authentic self. I don't want to come back as who the corporate people want me to be, or the speaker people want me to be, or the this, or anything that anybody wants me to be. I want to come back as me. And the question was, well, who's she? I'm like, good question. I'm going to think about that for about 10 months. And then I'll let you know. So she's a little bit weather girl, she can get on her, she can get all serious on you. But I have so much to give and to offer, and just want to pay it forward and share and help. And truly, yeah, that's that's where I want to be at. It's like, gosh, I've just got all this, and take it from me. Let me share this with you. Let me help you.
Absolutely. I can't even tell you how we could probably spend the rest of the night talking and go get our glass of wine and go right through midnight. I can guarantee you. But I've got to call it a day. And I just can't tell you how much I've appreciated this time with you. I know this is not going to be the last time we share a conversation, because we have some jobs that we've got to do together, you and I, my friend. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to the audience being introduced to you a little bit more. And if they want to get more information about what you're doing, like especially a young woman out there that is interested in transitioning to, consulting or, maybe even public speaking, where can they find you?
They can find me at Hannah Coffey, RDH.com. That is in the process of being built, and Hannah Coffey, RDH at gmail.com.
Awesome. Hannah Coffey, it was awesome spending time with you. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Women in Dentistry podcast with Dr. MJ Hanlon. If you like our show and want to know more about us, check out our website, thewomenindentistry.com, or please leave us a review on iTunes. Join us for our next episode as we bring you another amazing woman leading the way for the next generation.